Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Yal, and the class of warrior is so back in the War Within beta. This week a bunch of classes saw a ton of new adjustments, from new talents and even tuning and hotfixes and a lot of bug fixes, but out of all the classes out there, the warrior has probably seen the biggest gains out of them all, with arms and fury amping all their damage and abilities by roughly 30%, as well as adding some convenience talents for both arms and fury, some of which were based on community feedback, as in the community saw issues with the spec and Blizz corrected it, which is something that we really do appreciate seeing over during the development for the next expansion, is that community-based feedback and communication. So for today's video, I want to take a look at everything that warriors have gained as of this week, and I think this class has quickly started to become probably my favorite plated melee class out of all of them. Yes, even probably above Death Knights and Red Pallies, which have been insanely fun, but warrior I think is just on a whole nother level right now. As always, if you guys enjoy regular class updates like these for the War Within beta, be sure to follow the channel. Otherwise, let's dive right in. So first things first, let's go over some of the generalized warrior changes that are going to affect every single spec in the game, starting off with a couple of quality of life improvements all across the board. Starting off with Blood and Thunder, a talent that buffs your Thunderclap, removed. Instead, actually not even removed, just reincorporated back into your Thunderclap. If you have Rend, Thunderclap affects 5 nearby targets with Rend. This is good for prot and good for arms, because they don't need to invest an extra talent point in order to buff Thunderclap output. Crackling Thunder, though, no longer increases the damage of your Thunderclap. That's also has been kind of baked directly into Thunderclap. It does the most amount of damage every time you use the ability, but it does have a better radius. It does add an extra movement slow reduction, and visually it is still one of the best looking types of abilities. It really upgrades the ability of Thunderclap. It isn't necessary like it used to be, so you can now talent this out and spend it anywhere else you want to for additional survivability, utility, extra rage, which I don't know if you necessarily need it, maybe additional things such as intervene, or maybe cooldown reduction of things. It's a couple of options you could spend it right now, which is a good change overall. The Champion's Might Spear, the actual spear ability itself, has been also a little bit adjusted, primarily in its buffing talent abilities. With Champion's Might, for example, the Champion's Spear duration is increased, and you also deal 25% increased critical strike damage to your chained target. Previously, this meant that you need to stand in the spear to benefit from that 25% damage benefit, but as long as an enemy is tethered to the spear, you do 25% more critical strike damage to them. They did, however, adjust the way that the crit damage works. It is no longer multiplicative, it is instead additive, so it's a little bit less overall damage, but still a big quality of life improvement for the spear generally. And Piercing Challenge now increases the damage of your spear as well as rage generation, so it simply just amplifies the spear itself, which is also another buff that is still kind of sort of mediocre. You're most likely not going to end up committing too heavily into this one, except in key situations. Uproar is another talent that has been adjusted for Thunderous Roar, which actually has a better cooldown reduction element. Instead of a 30-second CDR, it's a 45-second CDR. That's some very Poindexter numbers type of things, but basically it lines up better with other CDs such as Avatar. So it makes Thunderous Roar a little bit more synergetic with other talents when you do add the cooldown reduction element to it. This is just nice overall, more uses out of Thunderous Roar, big damage all around, overall a really good talent. Then we have updates for the Arms Warrior, which has got buffed with all of your abilities, everything in your kit, by 30%. A huge buff for arms, which we really do feel once you step your foot into some Mythic Plus and Raid testing. The spec is doing pretty good, at least in AoE content. I haven't seen Arms Warriors really doing, I mean, nobody's really doing as good a damage as on Holy Death Knights in pure single target, but Arms Warrior damage has been improved, and it is very, very noticeable. They did also adjust some of the talents from the core class talent tree, mostly with the upgrades to Avatar. You have your new version of Blade Master's Torment. This one no longer gives you a free Blade Storm when you Avatar. Instead, Avatar activates Sweeping Strikes, and while Avatar is active, the cooldown of Cleave is reduced by 1.5 seconds. So it gives you a little bit more of an interactive, in-the-moment type of gameplay, which isn't bad, but it is very, very different compared to running normal Blade Storm, and it does make Blade Storm on its own a little bit less good, since Blade Storm can't really Sweeping Strikes or benefit too much from Sweeping Strikes. You usually try to align those abilities together apart from each other. Sweeping Strikes and Blade Storm usually are separated. There is some argument with Unhinged, which does send Mortal Strikes while you're Blade Storming that can cleave with Sweeping Strikes, but I think a lot of warriors are instead going to go into Ravager for the most part, because it does ends up being a little bit more synergetic. That's ends up being a little bit harder with Slayer because this one is very Bladestorm focused for the most part, so you will want to commit into that one, but there may be opportunity for you to run Warlord Storm in there. Still, there's a lot of testing that I got to do personally. I tried both builds, the Bladestorm and the Ravager. Neither of them feels worse than the other. They all feel pretty powerful. I think at the end of the day, it's going to end up coming down to like the value gain for one or the other abilities. You may end up maybe delaying Bladestorm until later outside of your avatar or inside of your avatar, but you'll use Avatar instead of a Warbreaker, and then you'll follow Bladestorm as part of your avatar towards the tail end of it or something. There may be some kind of adjustment that you'll see in the future, or maybe with Colossus where you'll just end up going Ravager, but then when you go Slayer together with a Bladestorm, you might end up switching over to Warlord's Torment. Warlord's Torment has also been slightly adjusted as well. It gives you 6 seconds of bonus Recklessness during Avatar, and the additional rage generation of Recklessness is reduced to 25% of its original value, so they're trying to find tuning between the two abilities, but I do like Blade Master Torment for the most part, but we'll see which one of these two ends up coming out on top at the end of the day. Also, the ability of Overpower for Arms Warrior, on top of a 30% buff, Overpower got buffed up by 20% on top of that, so it's quite a hard-hitting ability, but it also has this like a bit of a refraction effect, because there's a couple of ways that Overpower can be amplified. And that also amplifies the damage of Dreadnought, because it's basically part of Overpower. So as you buff Overpower, Dreadnought gets automatically buffed on its own, which not sure if this is supposed to be a thing, but I guess the way that they have it coded, Dreadnought is basically part of Overpower, so anything goes for either one of the two abilities. As for playing Arms Warrior when it comes to dungeons, at the very least, like I said, Bladestorm and Ravager with Sweeping Strikes feels a little weird. Ravager definitely feels better, so it makes you want to lean into more Colossus Warrior, but Slayer is such a good playstyle. This is a nice gameplay loop to it, and I love using the ability of Bladestorm, so it's gonna take me a second to figure out the better build, to figure out the best combination for the AoE, try some talents out, but overall it feels very good. It doesn't feel bad to play either one. It's gonna be interesting to experiment to find which one gives you the most value gain. Colossus still feels really good to play with these changes, because it has so much of this amp damage with its big demolish ability and this burst window with your dominance of the Colossus, so this 30% damage amp for everything, and now having a bigger burst window, it's awesome when you play around the cooldowns as Arms Warrior. There's still a bit of weirdness between Mortal Strike and Cleave, and juggling those two abilities in AoE or single target, or rather AoE more than anything as arms. I don't know, sometimes I find like I'm just filled with so much rage, so I press Cleave, and then while Cleave isn't cooldown, shorter cooldown thanks to Avatar, I'm almost inclined to press Mortal Strike since I'm cleaving anyway, so I'm just gonna cleave in and Mortal Strike and then really able to spend quite a lot of my rage quickly. I don't know, just the fact that Cleave still also gets empowered by Overpower, and Mortal Strike also does, like having those two abilities share that damage amp, still kind of feels weird to me, but it just may be my type of, like, I just have to get used to that. But it feels all very strong. All in all, Arms feels like the perfect melee class. Like, playing my rogue and trying to figure out builds with so many bugs that rogues have has been really tough, and I've been having a lot of fun playing Warrior as like my time to cool off and just have some fun, because the spec feels amazing. It feels good. Cooldowns feels great. Like, it does basically everything that I want a rogue to be able to do. Press my cooldowns, do some damage. Warrior's able to do that and satisfy that for me right now, so I've been having a ton of fun with it and exploring a bunch of different builds. Arms Warrior definitely is in a good spot right now. Then we have Fury Warrior, which is not a slouch by any measure, just like Arms, also buffed by 30% of its overall damage kit for everything that you use, which is also awesome. But also you have other talent buffs as well on top of it, such as Odin's Fury. With certain builds, it is back. They buffed it by 123%. So Odin Fury's back, baby. Everybody that I've seen in keys is running Odin's Fury and playing around, heavily investing around Odin's Fury. So that feels very good to play into. They also adjusted the talent of Reckless Abandon, which also buffs up your not only Bloodthirst, but also Raging Blow. So now you can go back to using your Raging Blow for a Crushing Blow, as well as Bloodbath, all in the same window. So both abilities become very heavily involved as part of your overall rotation, which feels absolutely great overall as a Fury Warrior. And it's just nice seeing that Crushing Blow is back. They didn't even bring back I was almost expecting for them to bring back the old version of Crushing Blow, like kind of like what they did with a Hunters and Flanket Strike. With Crushing Blow, they will have like a little charge into the enemy. No, Crushing Blow is just back in its better than ever. Though Reckless Abandon still has to compete with anger management, which has been unnerfed this time around. Or rather, it's not like a buff, but rather they're removing a nerf they initially implemented. So last time they increased the amount of rage you had to spend in order to get a cooldown reduction for your Recklessness, Bladestorm, or Ravager. It was 30 rage, now it's back down to 20 rage, so that feels really good. This is mostly a community effort because a lot of players enjoy the heavy uptime on Recklessness, and Blizzard is really kind of against it. So this was a community thing where, hey, cooldown reduction for all of my base abilities, big cooldowns, some of major CDs, actually feels really good, so they end up going back and changing it based on our Fury Warrior feedback. And overall, when playing Fury Warrior, I found having the ability of Odin's Fury back as probably one of the highlights for me. I've always enjoyed the ability ever since they kind of added it back in Legion, mostly for the visuals of it, right? It just feels good to press it. It's a powerful ability, massive cleave. It even has some talents that can synergize with whatever playstyle you want, whether you want to AoE and cleave or whether you want to do more single target damage. I've always been a huge fan of the ability, so that being back as part of my kit, I'm a huge fan of that generally. Anger management change is also very noticeable and feels really good. Whether you're playing the Bladestorm build with Slayer, or if you're not playing the Bladestorm build just for more raging blows as best as possible, especially when you're playing the Bladestorm build as a Slayer with Unhinged, that feels really good. It synergizes well, it's great for trash packs, and it's overall a good quality of life improvement. Fury always felt pretty good even before this update, but the damage buff makes you cool, and the cooldown adjustments that we've seen this week makes you even stronger inside of those CD windows specifically. So Fury is already a good spec to play well, it just was very undertuned, but now it feels really good to press all of your buttons. It's in such a good spot, and I'm a big fan of it right now. So basically, Fury Warrior enjoyers over in the beta are thriving right now. Every warrior that I see, in most cases, it's usually a Fury Warrior, and there's so many of them that are joining dungeons. Most of them actually get invited above other classes because not every class is doing the damage they need to be doing right now. Some of these dungeons really do feel overtuned, but Fury Warrior is one of those specs that's in a really good spot right now over on the beta, which hopefully bodes well for them going forward as well as future updates go through. But with that being said, that's going to be a pretty short update for the class of Warrior, primarily covering Arms and Fury. Hopefully sometime in the future we'll be able to cover Prop Warriors because I haven't really seen a lot of them running around recently. There hasn't really been a lot of updates for Prot as well, but for Fury and Arms in particular, as somebody who plays a melee DPS class with my rogue, kind of being in a bit of a rut right now with so many bugs and so many issues, Warrior has been my safe haven to just hop on the game, play a fantastic melee, besides maybe Survival Hunter, but it's another fantastic melee for me to enjoy during the downtime while waiting for some actual rogue updates. So Warrior friends, rejoice. Warriors are feeling insanely good right now. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think about the Warrior. What are your thoughts about all of the changes that have happened thus far? Well, as an Arms Warrior, what are your thoughts on the Super Strikes avatar? Do you like that synergy, or do you wish they brought back the original Bladestorm avatar combo? And as a Fury Warrior, what are your thoughts on the changes to anger management buffs, Odin's Fury buffs, your Reckless Abandon buffs, as well as all the different other changes we talked about so far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.